Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplanty Goodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it around me, it's tropical houseplants. So today I want to talk about a very cool Hoya that you might be able to see in front of me. This is the Hoya Australis Lisa. I think I've also seen it being sold now as just the Hoya Lisa. But essentially it is the Hoya Australis Lisa because, if I'm not mistaken, the parent plant behind this is the Hoya Australis, and I've got the green version of the Hoya Australis, and I would say this is very much related to that plant. It grows in a very similar manner, with the exception of the variegation. And let me lift up the plant so you can kind of see the size of the one that I've got in my care. So this is the entirety of the plant, and it has grown quite substantially. Now, I will say this was two different plantlets that I put in the same pot because I wanted a more bushy appearance. Let's talk a bit more about the morphology about the Hoya Australis Lisa. One of the things that you'll notice if you get this plant, or if you've already got this plant, is that the vines have got a slightly red tinge to them. And I'm trying to see if I can find some of the newer leaves. If I bring this in, my janky support sticks are doing the mostest to keep this up. You might be able to see that some of the leaves have got a peachy colour. I don't know whether or not I'm going to be able to tilt the plant enough, probably not, to see some of the newer leaves that are growing in, the baby leaves. And the baby leaves have got an almost red maroon colour when they first emerge. And then as they grow and as they harden, that will fade down to a pink colour, a peachy colour, and ultimately it will turn into this creamy colour that you might be able to see there. And you can see it on the rest of the plant as well. The variegation for this plant, or that creaminess, will stay within the midrib of the leaf, so it'll be in the middle of the leaf, and the outer edges generally will remain green. Not always the case, because it does grow in its own way. The other thing that's very cool about this plant is definitely a wax plant that I've seen has got a gloss or a shine to the leaves. It's got a very shiny, hard, succulent leaf, essentially, which means that it's relatively hardy. I found in my case, this has always been in regular household humidities, not in any form of extra humidity. Usually it's above radiators, just to give an idea of probably how dry it gets during the winter. And it really doesn't struggle. This is the first year where I've had multiple blooms on this. Last year I had a couple of blooms. This year it's just annoyingly just finished blooming a couple of days ago, but I think there was about 7 or 8 peduncles. It was quite laden. It sat in my living room, which basically meant, and this is something that hopefully some of you might know if you've already got Hoyas that are in bloom, you can usually smell fragrant Hoyas, because not all Hoyas do have a scent to their blooms. You can usually smell fragrant Hoyas in the morning, usually when you get up making your coffee or something like that, and in the evening. So based on that, and obviously if you have got the right conditions in terms of lighting, I would suggest for your enjoyment is maybe consider putting things like your Hoyas in your kitchen, by a kitchen window, and then in the morning when it's in bloom and you go to make your coffee, you get a lovely scent of the Hoya blooms when it is in bloom. Or get it into your living room, which is usually where you would spend your afternoons and evenings, because again, when you're sitting there watching some TV or something like that, you'll get that scent in the room from the actual Hoya blooms. Now, in terms of care for this plant, you might have seen it before, and I'll lift it up again. I have got this in terracotta, and I know it's a bit of a controversial topic. This is in my light airy aroid soil mix, and I have to be honest, this is possibly one of the last Hoyas that I've still got in terracotta and in soil. I'm pretty much almost done with moving all of my Hoyas from soil, from any kind of growing media, into lechuza pon. And the reason for that is, generally speaking, I have had great results when it comes to lechuza pon. I know a lot of people have had great success with leca as well. I have mentioned this a few times on my channel. I've not had the best success with leca overall, so I kind of gave up on that, but I've had great success with lechuza pon as a whole. So I've transferred a lot of my plants over to that, and instead of having my Hoyas in a reservoir, I haven't got to that level yet, and I know some people struggle with having it in lechuza and having a reservoir of water. I just have them in leca and water them the same way that I would with them being in soil. So essentially, however many days If it's a week, it depends on how quickly that media dries up. I will then drench it through, it will all run through, and then it's done for a good few days still until the next watering. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else to say about this plant. As I've mentioned, not particularly demanding in terms of its humidity. Big thing about Hoyas, and people that have been on my channel and on my Instagram for long enough, and if you're not following me on my Instagram, I do some really interesting posts, updates of some of my plants, and some informative reels. Do check the link down in the description below. But the thing with Hoyas that I found, hands down, for every single one of my Hoyas is they get essentially prime real estate in all my south-facing windows. And because I'm in the northern hemisphere, that means as bright a light as I can get them in the house. So sometimes my Hoyas actually get even more bright light than my cactus and succulents as well. So that will give you an indication of how much they enjoy the sun. And to be fair, 99.9% of the time, they love it. I can think of one example, for instance, my Hoya Crinkle 8. Because it's been in such bright light, it can get some bleaching on the leaves. But on the flip side of that, that's the Hoya that I have that has upwards, and it's about half the size of this Hoya. That's a plant that gives me between 40 and 50 peduncles blooming at one time. So that just gives you an indication. And I'm okay with that Hoya just being slightly more of a light neon green leaf rather than a darker leaf. And we've talked about lighting and what it can do to the leaf coloration and the darkness and the lightness of the leaves, but I'm not so worried about some of the leaves going a bit lighter. Also, some Hoyas to remember, like the Hoya Sunrise, they can get sun stressed, and it's not just the Hoya Sunrise. I've seen this with the Numerolioides. Words are hard and botanical names are harder, but the Numerolioides, I have never said that out loud, so I have butchered that. But hopefully most people understand what I mean. If not, I'll put a little name up here as well. That one isn't one that's meant to sun stress, but again, because it got a decent level of sun, that was one that did sun stress this summer. So very, very cool. You don't have to worry about this with the Hoya Australis Lisa. It will still get the pink and the reds, and then it will fade down to the whiter, creamier colors later on. But yeah, overall, a very cool plant. I think it's become a bit easier to find now. I don't think you'll find it readily in every single plant store like you might do the Hoya carnosa, but it's definitely becoming more easy to get. And I have to say, like the Hoya Australis, possibly one of the fastest growing Hoya. And I will caveat that by saying it's a fast growing Hoya. It's not a fast growing overall plant. It's still a Hoya. It still takes its time. But by Hoya standards, this is one that does grow quite fast if you give it the right conditions. And I think the biggest thing that I can tell you about conditions is give it bright light and give it for as long as you possibly can for this plant, and it will love life. Stay on top of the watering. If it goes a bit dry, this one isn't one that minds too much. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say about the Hoya Australis Lisa. If you've got any questions, comments, as always, do drop them down below. I'd love to have that conversation with you. We're building a nice little community of people that are discussing things in the comments, and I love that. And yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.